this sequels episode is a special moment for a lot of us who know Jarrod and love Jarrod.
We're all just here for this.
This has been a long time coming, and for those who don't know,
or he's been coming for a long time.
Yes, yes.
About this,
took the words right out of my mouth.
We all work in production and work kind of in the film world, and we have a studio, and so we've been working in close quarters with Jarrod for years now. And the one thing that we have to hear about several times a day for the last 6 years is why this film that he's about to name is, well, I've heard more about this film over the last 6 years than I've heard about any other film, period. And all the way from it has the greatest shot of New York City ever photographed.
Are you talking about the opening shot?
Yes.
Which it's from?
Yes.
I know, Superman.
Yep.
So there's just basically a lot of build up to this moment, and I'm just gonna let you take it away, man.
A lot of build up.
I just want you to know that that this is the culmination of years of listening about, because you are the true champion of this film. I will say that.
100%.
Yes.
I don't know anyone else.
You're the true champion. No one else. You're the
People
man.
love this film, but
You're
no one's like,
listen, for anybody right now who thinks that this podcast isn't worth listening to, or maybe we don't know what we're talking about, stay tuned for at least this moment, because this is the man that you want speaking about this particular film. And this particular film is what, Jarrod?
Gremlins 2,
The New Batch.
Welcome to the machine.
Coming soon to a theater near you. Maybe.
So, first and foremost, I'm going to go ahead and say this right out the gate, because this is something I preach all the time. For me, there is a difference between what I think is better and what my favorite is, right? So if I were to say my favorite sequel is Gremlins 2, I'm not necessarily thinking it's better than the original, but I do in this case. That's different. But like, for example, like a lot of movies, I would say, oh, that's my favorite movie. But then people go, oh, that's your favorite movie? It's like Godfather's the better movie. It's like, yeah, obviously Godfather's better, but this is my favorite, So I'm just going to put that out there right from the get-go.
Okay, thank you for that.
Yes. Okay. Go ahead and cut that out. No, so Gremlins 2. What to say about Gremlins 2? So much. But I'm going to
Start with the Looney Tunes.
We're going to get there. So there's two movies that I literally wore out on the VHS where I had to get another one. And that is Gremlins 2 and Terminator 2. Terminator 2 is a different episode. We're going to talk about that later.
I thought you were going to say Gremlins 2 and a backup copy of Gremlins 2.
Backup copy of Gremlins 2. But this is actually important, okay? So right from the get-go, the VHS version of Gremlins 2 is actually different from the theatrical version. I don't know if you guys know that, but it's just a one slight difference, okay?
Oh, yeah, I know about that.
So
with Hulk Hogan.
Yes, so in the theatrical version, Hulk Hogan... Okay, so the Gremlins interfere with the actual film itself.
They break the fourth
scrambling, the film, the actual film, as if, you're watching the theater and the Gremlins are there, which is brilliant. I think that's just such an amazing, roller coaster-y type thing. I love that shit.
It's very French New Wave.
And they're real. I saw them.
I know I've seen them too, but where?
In my laboratory. Voice of life.
Stupid name, I know, but...
It wasn't my own.
Dude,
break the fourth wall.
They just went off the wall with this one. Yeah. That's why I respect it, because they were double the budget, and they're just and they told Joe Dante, "This is your go wild," basically.
And he's the biggest cinema fan there is. Yeah, I would venture to say almost bigger than Quentin Tarantino.
Yeah, it comes from the school of Corman, all that stuff, and a lot of those guys did.
And it comes out in the movie.
Oh my God.
In so many layers and so many levels. But anyway,
Okay, so real quick. Okay, so the VHS version, the biggest difference you'll know is that instead of Hulk Hogan
Do you think the Grimsters can stand up to the Hulkster?
saving the day, you have John Wayne.
and John Wayne's dead at this point.
John Wayne is dead at this
Yeah.
point. They had someone who I forgive me, I don't remember the name, but they had a guy who did a pretty decent
Yeah, it's
John
not
Wayne
bad.
impression. Yeah, and I believe John Wayne's son is the one that recommended this guy. So they must have had some kind of connection there. But
Kissed at one point.
yeah.
And why was this change made from the VHS to the?
Well, if you think about it from an audience perspective, if you're in the theater, the reels get messed up. Hulk Hogan's in the theater.
Watching
he
it.
breaks the fourth wall and yells at the theater audience
Yes.
and
Yeah.
the Gremlins. But if you're at home watching a VHS, the Gremlins fuck with VHS tape.
So it's
And
like
it's
static.
You're
Oh,
watching
okay,
a John
okay.
Wayne tape,
Yes.
and John Wayne like breaks the fourth wall.
Gotcha.
Yes.
Okay.
And keep in mind,
Doesn't work as well, but
Yeah.
it's
True.
It's still a cool
True.
idea.
They before they like fuck with the VHS tape, they're like watching other movies. Like they're showing like reference to the first one. They show Snow White for a second, something like that.
yeah.
They start doing like bunny ears and they're like goofing around and shit. And eventually John Wayne comes in. They actually intersplice with an actual film he's in.
Hold it. Get the hell off my spread.
It's not the most popular John Wayne movie, which is
Yeah.
probably why they got the rights to it.
Yeah.
But they intersplice like John Wayne like shooting these gremlins, and they got little outlaw outfits on and stuff like that. It's just like from then on, like I just as a kid I was just like, this is more than a movie. Like this is a ride. Like
Yeah.
this is a ride.
That's a great way to put it. It's really,
Yeah.
really like a ride.
And to me, like there's not a lot of movies that do that.
And how old were you when you first saw Gremlins 2?
I mean, I can't even like it's one of my earliest
I'm
memories.
guessing it was a perfect age
Yeah.
to see it, right?
It came out in
Yeah.
1990. I was born in 1990. So like
Yeah. So you saw it on VHS or on cable, like in the
I
mid
mean,
'90s. Yeah.
yeah, easily.
Yeah.
I think the first time I ever saw it though was on VHS.
And when you saw it for the first time, did you know that shot of New York was the best shot of New York ever?
Yes.
Ever photographed?
yes, because
What is it about that shot that makes it the best shot ever
it's
photographed?
just beautiful. It's just perfectly straight. Zooms in.
There's
You
a lot of
got the-
competition, is what I mean.
Well, okay, so real
yeah.
quick. So
Yeah,
where
go
they got but I told you this from the get-go. I was like,
Gotcha.
look, I know they didn't shoot this, this wasn't a part of their shooting schedule.
Right,
They
yeah.
found the stock footage, The stock footage is from Superman 4.
Because Joe Dante worked for Corman.
Nice. Okay.
Isn't that
Okay.
crazy?
Yeah.
Used to cut
yeah.
trailers for Roger Corman.
Yeah.
Like,
Yes.
Roger Corman brought over Bergman movies
Yes.
and Fellini in the 80s. And,
Yeah.
and Dante would cut all the
That's why
trailers.
Dante does trailers from hell.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah,
That's
right.
right.
That's
Yeah.
where he cut his teeth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
You know,
Superman 4.
Superman 4.
He had the footage they didn't use, and he used it in
Okay.
Gremlins
But
2.
right before that, it's one of my favorite scenes is when the twins, who I love these guys, who, by the way, also are in Terminator 2.
Oh,
They're the
yeah!
twins, the
Oh,
fucking
yeah!
security guards from the
Fuck yeah!
hospital.
Fuck yeah.
Come on.
I wrote their name, the Stanton brothers.
Stanton Brothers.
Yeah.
Great name.
Yeah.
So these guys are really good.
Yeah. They
and
also followed Dante into the Looney Tunes movie.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
So Looney Tunes connection. That's coming in
Yeah.
a second.
Yeah.
But I love that opening scene where you're in the storefront, the store where the elderly Chinese man is, and he's dying, as we know, and Gizmo's sad. He's watching the TV, and stuff like that, because he got turned on the TV.
Yeah,
through the first
Gizmo is
movie.
extra cute in this movie, too.
Oh my god! Well, that's a whole nother thing. Like, they had limitations with this new Gizmo, they said, but because it was a bigger puppet. But they said because of that, he got to emote more. So he's like, the animatronics in this movie are out of control.
Yeah.
Like they are just.
The concepts are out of control.
Yeah.
It's
Oh,
big.
yeah.
It's
Yeah.
a big movie, and I mean that in the clearest sense. It is
That's
big.
That's an understatement.
It is big. I mean,
Yeah.
when you're the whole movie takes place in New York City, but more specifically, it takes place in the Clamp Building. The Clamp Building is basically kind of a spinoff of like Trump back then, and the whole Trump Plaza
Clamp,
stuff.
Trump. He even has his own book that looks the same as Trump's book.
One of my favorite logos is the clamp
yeah.
logo, where it's
Crushing
clamping
the
down on
world.
planet Earth. Yeah. You couldn't get like a better. I mean, it just.
And he's a media mogul at this point, which predicts Trump going into media even more.
Now here's the kind of the funny
Trump
thing.
wants his own network, so it's just
right.
like,
No, it's
just like him.
The only
But it's not a takedown. Whereas Dante nowadays probably would have wanted it to be a takedown. Back then, it's a nice way of just being like, this guy's a fucking fool. I'm gonna make him an archetype in my movie. You know.
Well, here's the deal. So when the script came out, he was supposed to be the villain of the story, but John Glover was so likable that they're just like, this guy needs to be like
he has
a
an
part
arc.
of it.
He has an arc.
Yeah, he's like, he's a corporate douche or whatever, but he's like,
he's still at the end. He's still a corporate douche, but he's learned a little bit.
But he's a genuinely nice guy, and you see that when Billy's doing his wonderful like
he's
art.
Just attached. It's like
like
Zuckerberg at a certain point. You know, I don't know how far off the planet Zuckerberg is at this point, but
God,
you could tell like there's some humanity in there, maybe, or there used to be. Okay, that's a bad example.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think so.
Did you see him covered in fucking sunscreen on the fucking holding the American flag on an electric surfboard? What the fuck was that? Oh,
he's
fucking
so
alien.
America. No, but I think that's kind of the funny thing is like he was supposed to be this villain, you know, but John Glover, and I love John Glover, he did such a good job at this character, and you can tell he had so much fun with this character. And he's actually ends up being my favorite one of the group, you know, minus Picardo as his villain, the right-hand man, who ends up falling in love with female Gremlin at the end. Good stuff. So where was I?
Let me ask you a question, and this might lead you somewhere. You can shoot it down.
Yeah.
Which one's your favorite Gremlin from this one? Which one's your favorite Gremlin?
No question. Brain Gremlin, for sure. Tony Randall voicing him, perfect. He sings New York, New York. I mean, come on. But my second favorite, because I think he's genuinely scary, is Mohawk, who ends up becoming Spider.
Yeah.
He's so good.
I said that so I can say my favorite.
Who's your favorite? Who's your favorite?
Vegetable Man.
Hell yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, so real quick, so talking about who's your favorite?
Somebody makes like a salsa out of his head at one point. Like,
it's amazing.
Just makes little vegetables.
It's amazing. He put one of my favorite.
It looks
deaths
unreal. It looks
is
so
the
good.
shredder death when Clamp puts him in the shredder.
Oh yeah.
I like Vegetable Gremlin because
that's so
he
good.
is just so as a concept.
It looks so cool.
It is so bonkers.
Yeah.
That Vegetable Gremlin to me is the symbol of Gremlins too.
Yes.
It is the symbol of absolute freedom.
Yes.
Okay, so there's this idea I had because I'm an editor too on the side, and so like you get notes back from the client to like do a revision.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have plenty of notes on this one. Trust me.
And so like revision after revision after revision, and after a certain point, you've revised it back to stage one. You know, you made so many changes. Now it's the first video you made.
Yeah.
So like, I don't think Gremlins ever made it back. They just kept revising and revising and revising and revising, and then you end up with Vegetable Medley on like 87. You know, it's so down on the. We're not ever coming back to regular Gremlins ever again.
So get this, they did have a studio note, and it was from Spielberg, and you know what he said? Too many Gremlins. He goes, way too many. You gotta dial it back, and there's still a lot. You know, there's still a lot.
So did they dial it back?
That was them dialing it back.
Oh my
Apparently they
God.
had so many more. But so here's the deal. For those who haven't seen, just an intro to this podcast, you should just watch the Key and Peele sketch of the writing and of Gremlins 2, because that's pretty.
You get a Gremlin. And you get a Gremlin.
Yeah.
And you get a Gremlin.
What about you, Silver Fox? Electricity Gremlin? You just said noun and gremlin, like you playing Mad Libs. You just like a child. You have the brain of a child. You do not have a high IQ, but you haphazardly came up with a gremlin that's just made out of bolts that is zigzagging all over the room and is done completely in animation. You a crazy person, and your idea's in the movie. Done. Next.
You're insane, man. Yeah, I love that. Like, it's so good.
Yeah.
But okay, so speaking of Gremlins and effects in general, so the biggest difference between the original Gremlins and this one, obviously, is budget. That was the big thing. They had a bigger budget, probably double the budget. But Chris Wallace didn't want to do this movie.
Yeah, he ends up doing Fly 2. Yeah.
Fly 2.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now,
because he worked with Cronenberg on Fly.
Right.
And then they offered him the sequel.
Chris Wallace, to me, is one of the most underrated special effects guys ever.
Definitely.
No one talks about him in the same vein as the other
He's
guys.
so good.
And it's
The
so
Fly
unfortunate.
is unbelievable.
Yes.
But that being said, Rick Baker
They hit the jackpot.
Rick Baker came in, and he did not come on until he goes, I want to do what I want to do. And they were like, yeah, that's why we brought you on. So that's where all the wild shit comes from, is Rick Baker's
The wide
mind.
shots in this movie are unreal. Even the ones where they're like digitally affected or like visually affected.
Dude, when they're
staggering.
walking around that fucking mall, which by the way, this building that they're in has a mall in it, and a food court, and a TV station, and a hair salon.
Oh, it's a Donald Trump.
Oh, and a laboratory with Christopher Lee.
Yeah, it's Trump Tower.
That's my favorite.
They've got a dentist in there.
They have a dentist. That's right. Yeah. Yeah,
fucking like the googly-eyed dentist gremlin.
Did you notice the reference to Running Man, or sorry, Marathon Man in there?
Yeah.
And he goes, do you think this will hurt?
Yeah,
He goes, that's what he says. That's what Dustin Hoffman says. Yeah. God, I love this movie, man. And this is not going to be coherent.
Marathon Man.
Yeah.
I was like,
this is not Running Man.
I was thinking, what is that?
This is not going to be coherent at all, but that's exactly what this
needs
to be.
Did you notice another thing about that dentist scene? I'm not 100%, but when I was watching it, like for the last, I don't know, since I saw Gremlins as a kid, like I feel like I've had the I've had that theme stuck in my head forever. And so I'm waiting for it. The other day I was watching Gremlins 2 again, leading up to this, and I'm waiting for that theme, and it comes in variations.
It's an alternate version.
And then in the dentist scene, of all scenes,
that's
when
it
just
starts.
It's almost like Dante's like, okay, this dentist, we have to like really make sure they know he's demented. And so they give him googly eyes and a drill, and they're like, da, 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 da. And then it's just like haywire after that. I mean, the whole movie's haywire.
Oh,
but like that.
Yeah.
That scene just like kicks it up, and like I don't know. When they do the reprisal, I feel like that's the first time they do it in the movie, and it's a good ways into the movie, but when it kicks in, it's just like. It was just like watching Twin Peaks season 3. You're like waiting for them to play the theme, and they don't play it till the last episode. Whenever like
when Cooper comes to,
and because David Lynch was specifically like keeping everything at bay. Like, oh, this is what you want. I'm not going to give you any of that. Right. And then he gives it to you for 1 second, one time, and then
but it's so worth it.
And that's what the dentist theme felt like, because I was like, oh man, it's like if you're into this movie, this is what it feels like to be Jarrod.
Yes,
because it's just like it's like the fucking cartoons.
That being said, though, I think this movie is one of the most punk rock movies ever.
It's pretty awesome
because they basically just took the money and woof, they just went with it. And they go, all right, you're gonna get what you're gonna get.
Yeah,
and there's a lot of respect to that, because all that meta humor that's tied in throughout the entire movie. And we could go into that in a second, but that set the bar for so many movies in the future to have that kind of winking at the camera, like, we know this is silly. Yeah. We know.
Well, this film starts with the Warner Brothers logo cartoon, like
and
Looney Tunes.
Literally.
Starts with literally Looney Tunes to set the stage.
Yes.
And that was probably the smartest thing you could ever do to tell the audience.
Right off the bat.
You're watching a cartoon, dude.
This is a cartoon.
Yeah. And that's like such a conceit to just be like,
yes,
communication to the audience, like, okay, this is what you're in for,
right?
And it's a non-fucking stop.
Yeah. But a great example of like the meta humor and the self-like references and stuff like that, like very, very self-deprecating, honestly, because that conversation where Billy is trying to convince like the communication team about what happens to gremlins when you feed them after midnight or get them wet, and then they start questioning all these things. They go, wait a second, what if the gremlin was in a plane and he crosses over the time? Like that,
and then
shit,
a fucking gremlin pops out and eats his neck.
You don't get that in movies these days. Like, God forbid a screenwriter makes fun of his own work.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like, and that to me was like such a welcoming, like we understand, like we get it's a little.
Well, the rules become especially when you're watching something made for children, not saying that this is or isn't, but when you're watching a cartoon or children's entertainment, they're very repetitive. They repeat themselves and they repeat the rules and they repeat everything you need to know for a narrative structure over and over and over. They beat you over the head with it. So this is a complete reflection of that Looney Tunes style where they're just like, here's the 3 rules you got to know. If you don't know these rules, it won't make sense. Next scene, here's the 3 rules. Remember them? If you don't remember these, the next scene won't make sense. And then like, now you're watching them and you're watching one at a time, then break the rules, because that's what the whole plot is.
Yeah. Right.
And, it's so simple
it's so good.
that it makes it just a fun ride that you just like watch the mayhem because they're breaking the rules.
Yeah.
It's
left and right, they're breaking it.
And it's just like, that's what kid entertainment is all about, is breaking the fucking rules.
Yes.
What are the rules? How do we break them faster?
Yeah.
But
and
now
on the subject of making fun of the screenwriting,
yes.
there's that great scene where Phoebe Cates
I
expounds on her Christmas story.
Mom had let me go to the park. She made me a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. I was going through that peanut butter and jelly sandwich phase. And this man with this beard and a hat looked just like Abe Lincoln.
Honey, I really don't think
Except
we've
for
got
the
time for
raincoat.
this now, you know?
And he goes, honey,
we're
we
out
don't
of
have
time.
time.
We gotta go. Yeah. Oh,
That is like my favorite line of that whole movie.
Yeah, that's great.
I also
because you're watching, you're like, are they gonna
go do it again?
This would be the first moment in the whole movie where they let something drag. And
Yeah.
like, nope, not gonna let it drag.
It's so good.
It's almost like Joe Dante coming through his characters and be like, no, we're done. We're done. On to the next thing.
Oh man, no, yeah, that's like probably my favorite scene in the entire movie. And then I gotta say, probably my second favorite character in this movie, Dick Miller. I mean, Dick Miller,
of course,
champion. I mean, obviously that guy.
Of so many films.
Oh my god,
that's the Dante crew.
Yes,
yes.
So I always write him down, but Dick Miller.
He was a regular.
Yeah.
Picardo.
The Stanton brothers become like regulars. Rick Ducommun or whatever.
Oh, from Burbs.
The security guard.
Oh, God.
Yeah. How do you pronounce his name? Ducommun?
I feel like an idiot. I don't know.
Ducommun.
Yeah.
Ducommun.
He passed away somewhat recently. And
also
I love
from
that
the
guy.
Burbs, Henry Gibson.
Yeah.
He gets his one tiny little part where he's smoking on a break and the head of security for Clamp is like called over to look at the security footage and he's just like trying to like hide between some like shit and like he's smoking a cigarette. He's just this old man and he's just like on this ledger. He's like, "What are you doing? You're on break." And he's just like, "What?"
Oh yeah, that's right. And it comes in on him. He's like,
clean out your desk. You're fired.
Mm-hmm. That's an unauthorized break period, my friend. You don't work here anymore. Do we have a problem communicating? You're gone. Terminated. End of medical benefits. That's right. Clean out the desk, 1 hour. And thanks so much.
Yes, that's
like,
right.
God damn it!
I totally forgot he's in that.
Yeah, he's the oldest
in the
neighbor
Burbs.
in the Burbs.
Yeah, he's like the doctor.
Bodies.
He's the surgeon guy, the little guy. You know.
But yeah, fucking.
Okay, so
Julia
real quick.
Sweeney.
Oh, that's right.
Fucking Peggy from It's Pat. Peggy from this movie, but It's Pat. Jesus.
And something about the horror host because that
was
yeah.
You read my mind. Okay, so that part is really special to me because obviously
great
Billy,
casting too from fucking Mrs. Doubtfire. You remember his part?
Yes,
he has a similar like show within a show.
Yes.
In Mrs. Doubtfire too.
And it's like cable television, all this stuff.
Yeah.
So I love that whole dynamic. I think if without that dynamic, I think that movie would have lost some things because I love that Billy kind of looks up to this guy. And he's trying to because his show's dead, like it's dead in the water.
Yeah.
And what does he say? He has that famous line. He goes, no one wants to see rubber bats anymore. He goes, they just want to smoke crack at 3 a.m. or something like that.
He has some wild takes.
He has some wild takes,
yeah.
But I get it. Where he's coming from, he comes from that business of just
he's been chewed up and spit out.
Yes, he is forgotten about.
Yeah, so that's why he becomes an opportunist.
Yes.
And takes on the news anchor.
Because remember, he gets
the news anchor role, but he finds what's his name from 16 Candles. And
yes,
you have a camera.
Yeah,
you have a camera, and I love how Joe Dante follows through with that small concept.
Yes.
It's just like the camera work is so bad.
And
you forget, it's scenes later, you forget that he's got the camera. All you see is this bad camera work on one of the monitors while he's being shot. And then that becomes a note from Clamp. Clamp's like, cool, just get a new cameraman.
Yeah, that's right. You know? And then, but what's so great about that is that character reflects on that in the beginning. He goes, I always wanted to be a newsman. That's what he said. He goes, I always wanted to tell the news. You know?
He thinks he's doing some bullshit being a horror host late night. And then they bump his slot. He's like, oh, I'm sorry, nobody watches TV at 3 in the morning. He's like, it doesn't matter, fucking life sucks, or whatever. He's like,
he has like a line where he references like, no one wants to see fake rubber bats anymore. They just want to see this, you know?
So the show within a show.
Oh God, like that microwave with Marge. I mean, that was just alone. I mean,
she has like terrible recipes.
Awful, and it's all just her like putting something and just putting in there and nuking it, you know,
which is great setup for the Gremlins to blow the place up, set it on fire. And
I wonder if there was something there, probably a little tie-in from the first one where she puts the one in the microwave, which is my favorite kill in the original Gremlins.
Is that what launches the grandma out the window or whatever? You know, she like shoots her up the stairs on the lift and then flies out the window in the first one. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh God,
that was like the best kill ever.
Malfunctions or whatever.
Yeah. Oh, that's what it was. They like short circuit.
That's right. Yeah. But real quick, not just like just jabber. I mean, we will keep jabbering about this. But one thing, a little about the history of Gremlins 2 is that they wanted to do a sequel to Gremlins, I think, kind of right away. But Joe Dante didn't really want to do it, you know, and he just kind of felt like it was done. But it was like one of those things where they just kept trying to make it and nothing had happened and da-da-da-da. Apparently there were early scripts where Gremlins took over Vegas. And I was like, that's kind of fun. That's kind of fun.
Sure.
There was another one where they were on Mars. Whoa. Really bizarre shit.
There's always an alternative script in space for
people
almost every
love
series.
Mars, man. Yeah. They still do, I guess.
It's kind of like flying, you know, like people just want to do that. They just want to see space movies and shit.
Yeah, it's bizarre.
Bond made it to space, you know.
But long story short, you know, they finally went back to Dante, and he was given basically complete creative control. You know, he didn't want any interference. He wanted to do what he wanted to do, and then they said, yeah. I mean, they said, well, you know, shit, he made a good one the first time around. Like, he can do it again. And critically, it was very well liked. Box office, kind of a stinker. Like, it didn't bomb, but it, like, I think it performed just even, you know? Gremlins is not a standard horror movie at all. It's definitely got a lot of comedy, you know? Yeah. That didn't help, you know what I mean? Because horror at that time in 1990, as we all know, was basically dead. I mean, it was, or at least in trouble.
There were a few good ones, but it was not a great time.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that's why now Gremlins 2 is so appreciated, because it's a very smart movie. Like, it's very well.
Nostradamus with Clamp, you know, and Trump.
Yeah.
True.
Even the okay, this is a hot take, I guess.
No, go for it.
The very end of the movie, he completes his arc by acknowledging Billy's little hometown blueprint.
Yeah.
If you think about that, that's kind of like if Trump had seen this movie, that could have been the beginning of MAGA. So he could have seen this and been like, oh, people want a quiet little small town. They want to go back to the way things used to be.
Right.
And I'm going to build it. I'm the king of Manhattan. His book says Clamp, I bought Manhattan or something.
Yeah,
that's like the name of his book.
Something like that.
And it's just like, oh, this is what people want? Sure. I'm going to build it in Jersey.
Yeah.
But yeah, so there you go. Birthplace of MAGA was Gremlins 2.
There you go.
Hey,
you went so.
Jared's favorite movie.
Hey, there you go. Makes so much sense. No,
I'm going to digitally add a MAGA hat to his head.
Just the whole time. Yeah. Ding. One thing I think is really funny in Gremlins 2 that I kind of forgot about is when you first see, and it's very telling of the character of Clamp, is when you first see him alone in his office. And by the way, I don't know if you remember, but he's like on the very top floor. And when you see his windows, it's just clouds. Like, he's so high up there that he can just see clouds below. Like, I think that's just such a brilliant thing. Like, he's so high in the sky. But anyways, he's so bored. He's in that office. Remember?
Yeah.
He's like talking to the secretary, and he's like, oh, you got anything going on? She's like, no, you're clear.
He's ready for a crossroads.
He's ready for a crossroads. Exactly.
Yeah. He's like, what's next in my life?
And I always thought that was kind of like, I don't know, it's kind of sweet. It's like
that Ozymandias, like, kind of top of the world, it gets lonely type thing.
That's exactly it.
You know.
That's exactly it.
And so he's like, I only have one way to go, and that's down.
That's right. That's right. And then, like, he comes in with the SWAT team at the end, so like that. Like, he's like, he wants to be a
who's the head
hero.
of the SWAT team?
Is it Dean Norris?
Dean Norris. And he's not the only Breaking Bad character in there. The beginning, the mailroom guy is Tuco. The guy who played
the whistles!
Tuco. Yeah.
Wow.
The one's
Tuco.
like,
That's right.
he has the Gremlin thing.
Yeah.
He goes, "Where'd you
Raymond
hear
Cruz.
that?"
Yeah.
Oh
Raymond
my
Cruz.
God. Well, shout out to him, man. That guy is a chameleon.
Yeah, he's great. He totally blends in.
Jesus. Shoot. Okay, so real quick, I want to talk about production design for this one too, okay? Because they had a big thing to tackle, okay? So your movie takes place in a big upscale building. All right,
fucking Die Hard for kids.
That is a perfect way of describing it. That is a perfect way of describing it because they had to build everything.
All the cops are on the ground floor, like watching it. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's just bizarre. And again, like this movie is definitely a tongue-in-cheek kind of insult to like capitalism. Like, let's just go ahead and say it.
And it's also an extension of even though this came out in 1990, it's almost like very late 80s.
Yes.
Where, especially late 80s, where everything is just pushed to 11. To the point to where it's just overboard.
It's covering all aspects of the negative parts of society. Like Dante's peppering in at every scene, somebody's saying something about climate change, TV culture and its negative impacts on children and adults. Like all these little micro doses of like major issues are all coming across because there's no scene longer than a minute.
Yes.
So you don't have any real dialogue or conversations. You just hear offhanded somebody says something, and it's like, oh, this movie's deep. But at least he's talking about these things. But at the same time, it's like we're staying at a high level here.
Yeah, like they don't go too. Yeah, exactly. They could have beat a horse with that. But they didn't. They walked a fine line. They're like, hey, we got to make a movie at the end of the day. Like,
it's a satire.
It's
so
100%.
Yeah. So you see you see reflections of those little microdoses in like scenarios like the microwave lady.
Yeah.
This shit is toxic.
Yes.
And like we understand that thanks to her visual and the whole sequence.
And arguably the most wholesome person, but prior to everything going, is the grandpa, the vampire host. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like he's the one that's actually doing like arguably real work within that building.
Because he's from the last generation.
And he's forgotten about. Which I think is kind of a nice little touch, Dick Miller is definitely like a big champion, like he obviously is a legend in his own right, but...
And a big champion of Gremlins 1, too.
Yes, yes. I mean, he's...
And everything he's in,
Yes.
I love him in Matinee.
Oh my gosh,
That's a whole other podcast.
That's
I love Matinee so much.
Should just do a Dante run.
Oh, we could. We could.
Yeah.
But so Dick Miller in Gremlins 2 is almost... His character is almost a kind of like funner this time around because he's been through it. But for some reason, his wife is like in this complete... Because she never got to see them, the Gremlins themselves. So she's like in complete denial of what happened. And he's like going through therapy and all this stuff. She's like, remember, like, da-da-da. She has like that voice, just like, remember, go through the steps, go through, like, everything's okay. And I just like love how eventually he loses it. He's like, I know what I saw, like, da-da-da. And he goes crazy. And that's when he has to fight with the Bat Gremlin, who then he pours concrete on and turns into a gargoyle.
That's great. Love that sequence.
Genius. And by the way, did you notice that, or I mean, you probably, of course you noticed, it's like right in front of your face, but the scene where the vampire bat goes through the wall as the bat symbol.
Oh, dude, yeah.
Like,
oh my gosh.
What?
Also, just on a filmmaking level, like the amount of know-it-all or wherewithal to pull off the animatronics, the visual effects, everything to make that cement gremlin.
Oh man.
Like land in the cement, wallow around, and then fly away, and then land on a thing. Like all the fucking shit. In like that's like 20 seconds of the whole movie.
Yes.
The amount of effort they put into this.
And you can see, and you should pull it up while we're talking about it. There's clips of Joe Dante with the puppet going right in front of Dick Miller, because that's. And that to me is like that image right there shows you what kind of filmmaker Joe Dante is. Is like I'm not saying that like he wasn't getting what he wanted before, but he was not afraid just to go in there and go, okay, I got this.
You gotta get your hands dirty.
That is from the school of Corman right there.
Right.
Just like you can't. Oh, no one else is gonna do this. I'll jump in and do it.
Yeah.
We've all been there. Like,
Yeah.
we've all been there.
Sure.
Every filmmaker.
Yeah.
But be doing it on Gremlins 2 in 1990 is pretty awesome.
It is pretty awesome.
Yeah.
It is pretty awesome. But to me, like, that was, unfortunately, I wish the rest, I mean, look, I love the 90s for different reasons, but one of them is not the horror entries that we got in the 90s. I wish that Gremlins 2 would have started off the 90s with a bang as far as horror or comedy went. Unfortunately, it didn't go that way.
Well, I wish I could go back. You know, I wish I could see, because in 1990, the release year of Gremlins, two films came out that I really, and actually saw them at the theater on the same night. One being the premiere of it, which is The Exorcist 3 and Arachnophobia.
All three of those.
Arachnophobia was a big movie.
Big time.
And it worked. And, you know, and
actually, Gremlins 2 and Arachnophobia have a lot in common. There's a lot of comedy.
There
really is.
They're all about tiny pests.
There is.
An infestation of tiny pests.
Yeah. So, again,
which infestation of tiny pests movie are you going to see this weekend?
Which one are you into? Yeah.
So, you know, I don't know. I mean, I don't know whether it was a little bit too distant from the original.
Oh, that's definitely a factor.
Yeah.
It was like
factor.
7 years? 6 years?
Six
years?
84 was Gremlins 1, I believe. Yeah.
Yeah.
84. Yeah, it was too late. It was too late. And honestly, it was probably a little too ahead of its time, you know, as far as like the humor goes. And
I wonder if the argument was it took us 6 years to make this many damn Gremlins. We've been working on it since 1984.
Well, I'll tell you what, Rick Baker definitely didn't get a lot of sleep on that one. I mean,
because they didn't. Because it's not like they reused Gremlins.
No.
They had like custom ones for almost every single one.
And apparently each Gizmo alone probably had like 3 or 4 different sets, you know what I mean, of pieces, like to puzzle in together.
Yeah, that Rambo sequence is,
oh my gosh,
is amazing.
When they
when he
does that and it finally does it and it
lights that pencil on fire
and it cuts to Billy and they go, what happened? He goes, I guess they just pushed him too far. And he's like looking in the
you
fire.
have to become war.
Yeah. In order to become war, or in order
to survive war, you got to become war.
Yeah. So like shit
Rambo.
like that, man. Like I love that. Them showing it's Rambo 3, I think they show.
Sure.
Yeah, because that's when he goes like full freaking insane. You know, Rambo 3. Man, yeah, this movie just has a very, very good place.
So
in my
many
heart.
homages too to classic cinema. I saw a Phantom of the Opera. I saw a King Kong. You know, it's got the one who looks the most like Gizmo, but it's like orange.
Early
on,
the goofy one, right?
Yeah, he was on top of the little skyscraper model, and there's a mobile of planes.
That's right.
Swatting at him.
Yes,
and it's so subtle because it looks nothing like it. It's just the shapes and
there's also
and she's hanging off like that. I think it's a she. I don't know.
So that gremlin is called Lenny, and he's named after Lenny of Mice and Men because he's like kind of.
Yeah. Another reference.
Yeah. There's another
Played
one
by
too.
Lon Chaney, right?
That's right. Well, that's for Phantom of the Opera. Lenny is from Mice and Men.
But didn't Lon Chaney play that character? Lon Chaney Jr. play that character in Mice and Men?
Man, the only Mice and Men I remember is the Gary Sinise one with John Malkovich.
It's Malkovich.
Yeah.
Oh.
Which is a great movie. Great movie.
Yeah.
But there's also some classic actor references, like the guy with the mean face, that is an actor from like the 40s and 50s, like noir stuff. I can't remember. It's not like Humphrey Bogart, but someone like big back then.
Yeah.
Did Howie Mandel do Gizmo in the first one too?
Yes. He did in both.
Yeah. So much. I mean, it's just like. I mean, you can't really tell it's Howie, but.
Yeah.
And then
you really can't. I mean, that's a compliment to him, though. I mean,
then Frank Welker, who was Mohawk,
Frank Welker did a lot of voices.
He's a Scooby-Doo, man.
Scooby-Doo.
860 credits.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. Still doing Scooby-Doo.
Yes. Yeah. Frank Welker is probably
Fred on Scooby-Doo.
Yeah.
Frank Welker is probably one of the best voice actors ever, especially in cartoons. He is incredible.
And then there's Tony Randall.
Yeah, Tony Randall actually sings New York, New York in real life, so that's why they got him to play Frank Gremlin. You know,
that's great.
And he is, and when they go on the talk show, and Brain Gremlins explaining why
they
want to
be part of culture, but it's going to take many years of cultivation.
Civilized. Yeah, he's like, and he's like, might I have a word with you? And he shoots him.
And he's like, see, you guys wouldn't do that, but we're gremlins.
Yes.
And one day we'll be like each other.
Yes.
It's going to take some time.
Yes. and Gizmo is definitely the kind of the prize of the movie because he just looks so good. But I gotta say, Brain Gremlin has tons of expression, and you're seeing like the top half of him most of the movie, and his arms are going and everything. And I just can't imagine how hard it was to do all these puppets at the same time. The very end, the climax of the movie, when they're getting all the gremlins wet, and they have the electric gremlin on hold on the phone, and they shoot him, like that is so good.
Yeah.
But I can't even wrap my head around like the shot list of that day.
Oh yeah.
Like, okay, hey Joe.
In the morning we're gonna shoot Christopher Lee.
Yeah.
And then knock out some mad scientist shit.
Yeah, no big deal.
Afternoon.
Yeah. Oh, hey Joe, you got like 300 gremlins in water. So good luck.
Yeah,
you know?
Then we're gonna do Leonard Maltin's like anti-Leonard Maltin's own words.
So kudos to Leonard Maltin for this one.
What a sport!
What a sport! Because
he's been a rock and roll guy ever since.
Yes.
I feel like too. He goes to Fantastic Fest every year.
Right. But real quick. So he did not like the original Gremlins. Okay. So that's why they brought him in for the sequel.
He gave it a sort of bad review. Yeah.
Yes. It was
lightweight bad review.
Yeah. He wasn't like this is trash or anything like that. But it was not great.
No.
But they wrote a scene where he reviews Gremlins and the Gremlins attack him on his show.
And he reads his own words from real life.
Which I think is just...
Dante's like, so genius.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
And that's very cool of
It's
Leonard
so
Maltin.
cool of him to just roll with it and be like, I'll own up to it. I'll do it.
It really is.
So it just shows you that the film critic to film maker relationship is a dynamic one.
It is.
And it depends on the person, obviously, because some people take all sorts of stuff to heart and take it personally. But there's a dynamic there that can be really entertaining and fun.
Absolutely.
You know, because it's all in service of a good story.
Of course.
And trying to get the best product. But at the same time, like, sometimes you don't quite get there. And you get eaten alive.
So, I mean, devil's advocate on Gremlins 2, though, is it a possibility that in some ways this is sort of a too many good things type of scenario?
To Spielberg it was.
Yeah, to Spielberg. Yeah, he was like, hey, man, I'm not made of money. I mean, I kind of am, but
like
no,
almost too many ideas. Like
there
was. The brakes.
Yeah. So what probably happened? You know, again, like go to the Key and Peele sketch. You know, because that's very probably accurate of what a studio would say. Is be like, you have way too much going on here. Like, can we eliminate 3 Gremlins at least? And then like Joe Dante was like, no, I'm gonna throw everything at the wall and we're gonna see what sticks. You know what I mean? Now, I'm sure when it came out, people probably thought it was overstuffed and stuff like that. And people now might think it's overstuffed. I think it's just where it needs to be.
Yeah.
I think
it's a cartoon. You gotta
It's
go.
a Looney Tune cartoon.
You go to the 10, and then you stay at 10 because it's what kids want, and like adults can get into it too.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know.
Yes.
I think a lot of your love for this movie is nostalgia, no doubt about it.
Of course.
But it's totally validated when you rewatch it, and it's just like, this is a fucking great movie.
Yeah.
You know,
it's definitely an underappreciated.
It is
totally
underappreciated.
Sure.
And I will say this because I was bugging you for a while to rewatch it. I was like, please, why rewatch it?
And, well, what I remember is you saying, if anything else for that New York shot, you're like, if anything else, like that is the best.
Yes. And right before that shot, you have that great line with the twins.
Great
remember?
logo too.
Yeah. The twins go there and they pick up Gizmo, and he's like, you know what I always say? If you want to find something weird, you gotta go downtown. And that's when it goes
downtown.
I think it's also a combination of just great editing and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's also the last. No, I'm not going to go there.
Oh boy, you're about to the Twin Towers, huh? You son of a bitch. Yeah, that's exactly.
It's also the last view of Flight 93.
Oh God, cut that. The reason why it lasts so long, or the legacy of that movie lasts to this day, is because of the humor. I think that it has a very sharp wit to it, and I think it holds up now.
And the rules are so clearly defined, and it plays by them.
Yes.
And when it breaks them, it's story driven, any movie that just follows its own rules is refreshing.
Yeah.
Especially ones that like spell it out for you.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
But two big things I just want to say before I wrap up. Big kudos to John Glover for playing Clamp. I think without him, this movie would not have worked as well. It really wouldn't have.
Yeah.
And then another shout out to Picardo as the real villain in the movie. Those two, I think, really elevated the movie to where it needed to be. Because otherwise, it would have just been Billy trying to figure it out, running into a bunch of gremlins, trying to save Gizmo. But those two characters are very important. They're very, very important. More important when I look back at it now and I watch it. Because you look at it back then, you go, well, who's the villain? And then like, oh, okay, it's Picard. Okay. It's the right-hand man of the big one at the table.
Yeah, security. Head of security.
Yeah, head of security. That's right.
And then like he gets rewarded with a half day off or whatever. He's like, can I have a day off, sir? At the end, and the guy's like, a half day.
That's right.
Thank you, sir.
That's right. Yeah. He's like, thank you, sir. Yeah. And he's just so good at playing a prick, and that's just kudos to that guy.
He's on
good.
Star Trek, right?
Yeah. Most people know him, from like being the villain in Howling and a bunch of other stuff.
Joe Dante again.
Yeah, Joe Dante All-Star right there. But I just want to put that in there at the end because I truly do think that John Glover in particular is very underrated in that movie because it's very likable and he was not written that way. So that's a testament to good acting right there.
Yeah. So. Great pick.
Yeah. Thanks.
That was worth the wait. Yeah,
that was fun. It's fun to watch you blow your load.
Oh, dude, I couldn't help it. Yeah.
That was.
But I think you have to do it with a movie like that because that movie's so. You might as well have an ADD review.
That's true. That was the right review for the right.
It's
by the right person.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an ADD version for sure. Yeah.
So cool.
The picture's fallen into the hands of the Gremlins.
I think they know that can't make the movie without them, and they're getting very independent.
And they're just not very cooperative. I mean, in all the time that we've spent between the two pictures, they've developed their own ideas of the way things should be.
You know, they think they're stars, and they can't be controlled.
At times, they're extremely demanding. At times, I mean, you get Gizmo saying, well, I'm tired, I've had enough for the day, and that's it.